Hey everyone, how's it going? So I got a new limb saw shipped in here the other day, and I'm just now getting around to putting it together. And I was going to just show y'all, I guess I'll show y'all putting it together, and then later on we'll show using it. Can't use it tonight, it's dark, y'all won't be able to see anything. But right here is what we got. I just got it all laid out in pieces right now. You got two 4-foot tubes, and then you got this piece, and then you got this piece. This is a circle saw type limb saw. So the blade will be put on right here. There's a hydraulic motor in here. I think you have to have 15 gallon per minute flow to operate this thing. But what I'm going to do is just go ahead and try to stick it all together. First thing I got to do is route those hoses in right here. I'm going to run them down the tube, and then I'm going to run them down this tube, and they come out right here, and then there's clamps on each end to clamp them in. Now there's one thing you got to remember here is there's a collar right here that you got to slide on this before you run these hoses in there, or you'll have to pull the hoses back out and put it on there. But you got to make sure you turn the collar the right way, because it slides back up over this joint right here and lines up with this, but it doesn't cover up this second hole. So you put it on there with the hole with more tubing on the lower side than you do on the upper side. Here is the way it's supposed to go, and to my understanding anyway, we'll find out. So first thing I gotta do is route those hoses down through there. It shouldn't be too hard. I'm going to put them in first, and then I'll bolt these two sections together. Should be able to work the bolts through the hoses. And I just figured it'd be a lot easier to try to put the hoses in before I had those two bolts in there, or you'd never get them by. There's bolts that go in these holes here to hold it together. So let's give it a shot. Obviously you could do this on a workbench. It would be a lot easier. We don't really have any workbench space at the moment, so I'm just playing on the floor. Alright, so they come out here. Put them together. See if it'll continue to go down here. Here already. So I've got them here at this hole. I just got to get them to come out of the hole. Kind of bend them around there. You got 1/2-inch pipe right here to put your couplings on the hooks of the tractor. I swear that fitting's a lot bigger. That's one thing. So now I can slide all this together up here, and I'll slide this collar right here. Make sure them hoses don't go back in. Now I'm going to try to get these two bolts in there so I don't lose what I've got here. And then I have to remove this bolt and bolt it onto the stick. I got to figure out which hole. There's two holes in the end of the tube in there, so I got to figure out which one it goes in. So I'll look in the book. Okay, be back soon. Head on the stick, and you got to get this hole lined up with this hole, and this tubing would not fit in here. So I cheated and I got a Porta Power and a spreading jaw and put in there and jacked it out so I can get it in there easier, because I've been sitting here fighting with it, and I said, heck with this, I'm tired of fighting. And so I went and got that. But if you don't have a Porta Power, maybe you could cut a wedge of wood or something and drive it in there to spread it open if you're having trouble. I hadn't tried it since I spread it open to see if it's going to help. So far, I want to say no. It doesn't help. I want to move it. This bolt is plenty loose, so that's not holding it. Let's catch it right here in a different spot. Ah, there it made a difference. Fell down at the bottom down here. Move this. Put it in here. Get the bolt ready. I had to finally get this thing in the right spot, right in front of this, and drove it down in there pretty deep to start with to get it spread open enough to get it in there. But I finally got it. Now I can tighten this bolt. There we go. So there it is on the tractor. I got to take these loose, put these hoses in them. I need to pull the hoses on down, but I can tell you right now, they didn't send enough hose to go anywhere. I got to go over here, so I'm going to have to make extensions on this hose. So fortunately I can do that. I got the equipment back here. So alright, so I'm going to work on clamping these hoses down and then making some extensions. Oh, they sent a new coupling. See, I got this old coupling that came with the old Eliminator saw. By the way, the same company made the Eliminator saw that I have, that I use with the chainsaw bar, and they still make that saw. But this is, they changed the name to this limb saw, the Limb Saw Company, but it's the same company that made my Eliminator saw several years, I'd say 15 years ago. So this is, this company's been around for a good while, and they do a pretty good job on these saws, I think. I'm excited to try this circle saw, see how it does with the limbs. It'll cut up to a 4.5-inch limb. But the thing is, you know, with a circle saw, if you got a bunch of small limbs, you ain't sitting there sitting on one little small limb and trying to cut it. You could take a circle saw and just turn it on and raise it up and down and cut all kinds of limbs off. That's where the other one falls shy, is with the chainsaw. If you got small limbs and lots of them, it just takes forever, because you set it on a limb, cut it, set it on another limb, cut it. It takes time to move it from limb to limb. With this thing continuously running, you just touch the limb and it falls off, to my understanding. So we'll see. Y'all will see too. And hopefully it works as advertised. So I'm going to do a little more to this thing, get it ready, and then we'll try it later on, maybe tomorrow. So, oh, what I was going to say about this tube is they sent a new one, and it has these set screws on it to lock it in there tight. Got 2 here and 2 here. This one does not have those set screws, and the saw can wiggle around in there quite a bit. So I'm thinking about changing over to that new one and see if it'll do a little better. So all right, see y'all in a little bit. Okay, so I've got everything done and hooked to the tractor and tested the hydraulics. I switched this out, put the newer version on. I've got the hydraulics plumb right. If you'll notice, one of these hoses is a little bit bigger than this one's a little bit bigger than this one. The smaller one is the pressure hose, and the bigger one is the return. So if you're wondering, put the pressure to the smaller hose if you get one of these things. I had this off. I thought it would say on the motor, but it didn't say which one was pressure and which one wasn't. But I kind of figured it out by the arrows on the check valves. They have some check valves in there. All right, so I was getting ready to put the blade on. I took this little guard off. There's 4 bolts. 4 bolts right here. You take those out and take that guard off. It covers all this. It covers this nut. It's a Castle nut with a cotter pin in it. So we're going to take that cotter pin out. Probably had to get a pair of pliers. It's not a very heavy cotter pin. Got it. Nut's not that tight, so take that off. And one of these goes on one side and one on the other. And then you can put this blade on there, and it's going to rotate to the right. Alright, so I was wrong. The blade actually, looking at it from where I was looking at, rotates to the left. Well, that would make it look left to y'all. Anyway, so I put the blade on backwards or wrong the first time, but I figured it out as soon as I turned it on for the first time, and then I switched the blade around. So if you're putting one of these together, pay real close attention. It don't show which way the arbor turns on the unit, so you kind of have to figure that out on your own. It turns exactly opposite of the way that I figured it did. So it also makes it, well, it's still I flipped the tubing, I flipped the whole thing over so the blade would be turning forwards when you went into a limb, and that made it work a lot easier or a lot better. Before, I had it rotating backwards. It was rotating backwards the way that I have it here on the tractor, and when you go into a limb, it wanted to kick back and it would catch, and sometimes it would get hung real quick. But I flipped the whole thing over, and this thing, it works really good. I'll just give you a hint. You just wait till you see the video of me using it. All right, back to this. So I got to put it where the teeth go the right way, and then in order to tighten it, once you get ready to tighten it, if you line this hole up right here, there's a hole. I don't know if you can see it in there, but you can stick a punch in that hole so it don't turn, and then you can tighten this big nut with a wrench. So I'm going to do all that, get the blade on there, and I guess it'll actually be ready to use then. So, all right, and then we'll try it out tomorrow. All right, so an 1 3/8 wrench fit this thing. I don't know how tight to get it. I ain't gonna like overly tighten it. I'm just gonna get it snug. Put the cotter pin in. It works. All thing is left to do is use it.